Hello everyone and welcome to the channel. I'm Emmanuel, I'm a 737 pilot and a member of PNVG's tech team. Welcome to a kind of special live stream that I came up with today, which is going to be the 737 freighter. And we're currently standing in Budapest. We're going to be flying it up to Copenhagen, and it's been a little while, but I remember some of you asked me if it would be possible to explain a little bit about the minimum equipment list. So that is what we're going to do today. We have an aircraft that has the APU inoperative, so we are going to fly just this. I will do all the associated explanations as we go along, so stand by for that, and I do hope that you are going to enjoy the flight today. So my apologies, by the way, it's took a little while to set up the live stream, and originally I planned to fly something different today. That's why things just changed around a bit. But here we are. We're sitting in the Prime Air, operated by ASL Ireland, Boeing 737-800 freighter, in the Echo India Delta Alpha Delta, which actually is a converted Ryanair aircraft. So that's the thing we are going to be flying today, and there will be a couple of interesting things in that. Number one, we'll have to do an air start, so we'll have to use the external air start unit in order to get our airplane up, and then we also have to do the procedures without APU on the arrival. And of course, well, heating the airplane is not so much a problem on the ground right here, and it would be rather rare to actually use a third-party unit for that. So, the minimum equipment list for the APU inoperative tells us that during the pre-flight we have to do a thorough inspection of the APU area in the tailplane to make sure that there is no kind of damage that could in any means compromise safety. So that is the very first thing that we are going to do. And as we can see, the airplane looks superb back here, absolutely nothing to complain about. So with that inspection done, we can head over into our flight deck, power up the airplane, and then we can begin loading our cargo. And here we are, welcome to the cockpit of our 737. We can see our maintenance van up here. They are still filling out the last bits and pieces of the tack log and the paperwork. And as soon as that is done, the airplane will be released for service. And knowing that, we can already start setting our aircraft up. So, ground power unit is working today. Probably the most important piece. Without the ground power, nothing would work today. Something to watch out for during the fire test is just to make sure that the APU stuff may or may not work. But it actually is working today. And the fire bottles, of course, are checked. By the way, my apologies if I may still be following some of the passenger procedures that may not be applicable for freighter. I'm sure you can imagine how that works. First change that we're seeing here in the BCF is that we actually have a different fire extinguisher up here, and I will explain a little bit more about the fire procedures in flight when we start to think about what may or may not be working and what may be different in the freighter compared to the passenger aircraft that we're also used to. Of course, basic setup of the airplane is pretty much the same as it would be in our passenger airplane. Turn the hydraulic pumps on, then my colleague can do the walk around. Voice recorder coming on as well. And that's pretty much our setup complete here. So, before we start looking into our loading, let's actually have a very quick look into the flight plan just to make sure that you and I are both on the same chapter of what we're about to do. And here it is, once again, straight out of Sim Toolkit Pro. And we will be the contract 102 in Budapest to Copenhagen. Flight time today 1 hour and 39 minutes. Planned optimum flight level 360. 55.5 tons of zero fuel weight in here. And going on, let's have a quick look into the weather and see how much fuel we'll need. So Copenhagen is light rain, broken 600, and it looks like it's gonna stay like that. Wind 030 at 13, so that means runway 04 will be active. Let's do a quick check to make sure that we actually have the very same thing up here in the route. And it is, runway 04 left is in. Okay, perfect. Then I would say we take a little bit of extra fuel for the event in Copenhagen, as we can never be too sure about any possible delays, but I don't expect too many. So for the fuel, if we just take, let's say, 15 minutes extra, so something in the region 600 kilos, so 7.3 would then be our fuel. That's good. Tell them we want 7.3. And they can start fueling, and at the same time we can also start loading all our cargo. And that is gonna take a little while here. So, 737 freighter. Current navigation data, enter rating 26k, perfect. The majority of this stuff is just the standard stuff that you are already familiar with. But I will be using some company routes today to make things a little bit quicker here, since we will have a little bit of time to consider the other stuff that we have to do. Which in this case primarily refers to reading the minimum equipment list, which we will have to do in a few moments. And Israel Doleo, this is Sim Toolkit Pro, not related to Navigraph at all. But in my opinion, quite a bit nicer. Okay, so quick look into the departure rates, which we have down here. They have information echo from 1900, runway direction 13, expect 13 right, departures 13 left. And 13 right, transition level, okay, so we can expect either of the runway 13s. Alright, so let's have a look into the Navigraph charts. Might take a little while until they actually open, because I've played a bit too much with that app, and I managed to, let's say, do a little bit of not so good stuff with it. But here we are, Navigraph charts, and this is going to be the route for today's flight. We'll take the charts straight from here. But a quick look into where we actually are. We're parking down here on apron 1, so I'm expecting runway 13 right for our departure. It might give us 13 left as well, but let's calculate with 13 right initially. So, 13 right, and we'll do the bar off to Juliet in that case. And Copenhagen will probably be landing 04 left, Monarch 3 Alpha, and that shall be it. Course NX30, we have to get in before the airport closes, so that means that we can fly pretty much as fast as possible. That's one of the lovely beauties of cargo operations. Normally the airlines just, you know, in case you need to get to an airport and in case you need to be on time, then they'll just do pretty much anything they can in order to make that happen. Versus in passenger operations, they often just follow that typical, well, the passengers can still call their own taxi. Which is kind of right, to be honest. Okay, and for the departure we're looking at transition altitude of 10,000 feet up here. And that is pretty much our setup. Let's see if we've got any engine out departures. So once again, I am using Sim Toolkit Pro for that. And in Sim Toolkit Pro I have set up a direct link to the airfield briefings from Blackbox 711, which are really good in my opinion, so much recommended. And in here we can see 1-3 right, engine out acceleration, engine out, sit, track 128 to 25 miles and hold. So what we'll do, we'll enter the airport /25. Okay then, I'll quickly finish up the setup over here, and then we'll get to the more interesting stuff for you guys, which is the considerations due to the APU inoperative. And we'll cover those as part of the briefing, just like we would in the real airline. So, what do we have? QNH 1020. Like this. Do note, we do have a new light in this cockpit, which is the main cargo door light, which is of course appropriate for the freighter that we are flying. And 737 and G123, when would an APU be inoperative? Well, mostly when the thing just breaks down and the airline hasn't had the time to fix it yet. I'm going to show you a little bit on that topic as soon as we look into the minimum equipment list, which we will do in a moment. Okay, so let's take the opportunity and have a look into it now. So, first of all, how can you get the minimum equipment list in Flight Simulator? The answer is quite simple. Just Google for it, and the American FAA has published all their master minimum equipment lists for you to actually have a look at. And I've downloaded it already, and here it is. So, this is what the document looks like. Master minimum equipment list 737, and it's valid for all types from the 100 to the 900 ER. And then we just search for the topic that affects us. And that is over here, airborne auxiliary power. And we can see quite a couple of things in here. And starting with that, we can pretty much see how the tables are made up over here. And what this tells us is item APU. It's a category Charlie item. That means the airline has 10 days to fix it. So from the moment it breaks, the aircraft is legal to be operated for 10 consecutive days until the airline has to fix it. After those 10 days, the MEL can no longer be used, and then the airplane is grounded. But for those 10 days, it is legal to use it. So there is one APU installed in the aircraft, and 0 are required for dispatch. And then we have some remarks over here for the item, which basically say that 0 required is except for extended range operation, the APU may be inoperative provided that. So, extended range operation is the former ETOPS, which means we are not allowed to fly more than 60 minutes from a suitable diversion airport with the APU inoperative. Keep in mind for that, if the if an engine fails in flight, you are down to a single electrical power source, and that is a definite mayday. So you don't have a backup for that. Now, the APU may be inoperative provided. Procedures do not require its use. So, for example, we could not dispatch if we could only do a remote de-icing with the engines shut down, which is luckily not the case today. And Item B, we have to perform a visual inspection of the tail cone area and the adjacent control surfaces to confirm that there is no evidence of heat damage or delamination. And remember how we did that just before we actually boarded the aircraft? So that is all that the minimum equipment list has to say about the APU being inoperative. So with that, we know that we are now legal to fly, and therefore we can close our MEL again. There will be more items for consideration, and we'll talk about those in a few moments when we actually get airborne. Okay, so let's start our briefing then. Threats for the departure. Well, if I'm totally fair, I don't see any particular threats, except for that we are not so familiar with the airport over here. But that is the only problem we see. Of course, we have to do a crossbleed start right after we have pushed back, so that is maybe a little bit of a threat there as well, in that it will require us to actually do increase the thrust above normal taxi settings. So we'll just be careful. We'll read and do the procedure carefully from the AFCOM, and that covers for it. Then for the route check, we uplinked the route Budapest to Copenhagen, where the contract 102 and the ground distance for that 636 nautical miles, which pretty much equals the flight plan. UTC time is invalid. I did want to do this flight in daylight conditions. Altimeter 1020 reading 430, standby instrument set, flight directors on master. This is going to be a left-sea takeoff on runway 13 right, flaps 5, noise abatement, departure procedure number, number 1 over here. So that's a bit of a threat as well, as we are so used to doing NADP2s, but we will be doing noise abatement departure number 1. And apart from that, we don't have any specials. So, emergencies as briefed on the way to the aircraft, so let's talk about our taxi now. And we'll find that once again on the Navigraph charts, which we do have available just up here. So, we're parking here on apron 1. It's going to be a pushback into either direction, we'll see, and then hopefully 13 right for departure, so taxi via Charlie and Delta for a full-length runway 13 right departure. We have the part of, to Bravo departure today. And if we have a look into the FMC, we are going to find that in here, indeed, we do have runway 13 right with a bar of... Wait a moment. That says to Bravo, that says to Juliet. We might have to change that. Okay, so departure runway 13 right, please. And then bar off to Bravo. Perfect. No, still not perfect. 13 right. Come on, bar off to Juliet. That is perfect. Let's get those charts, and here we are. Good thing that we're doing this, for once. Okay, so, transition altitude 10,000 versus 10,001. Speed max 250, below flight level 100. And we'll just quickly put that in. 250/100 in there, thank you. So, routing. Climb on 127 course to Bravo Papa 711. And thereafter it's going to be a left turn, Bravo Papa 702, left 308, 17.8 miles, Bravo Papa 703, 307, 16 miles to waypoint 704, and then to Bardov above level 140. Initial climb, 7,000, and we'll put that into the FMC as well. 230 is the speed limit according to the chart, so I'm not going to change any of that. MSA 3600 as required. Any questions on the briefing? Probably not. Very good. Miranda, I'm using the PMDG 737-800 freighter in Microsoft Flight Simulator. So let's see, maintenance is done, fueling is done, they can go. Looks like the main cargo is loaded, the lower deck cargo is loaded, and the main cargo is loaded as well. Perfect, so we can close all of these here down. Okay, that's very good. So we are pretty much done with this. The next thing is going to be the IFR clearance or the checklist. I would say we actually start with the IFR clearance, then at least we know if our briefing is still accurate.
This is 546 course, startup and pushback approved, facing exit point Hotel 1.
Pushback start approved, finishing Hotel 1 with a 546 call.
Budapest delivery, good evening. Contract 102, information echo, request startup.
Contract 102, Budapest Grant, hello, stand by, I'll call you back.
Okay, stand by, stand by. In that case, I would say we start with the checklist. So, services and shocks, checked, maintenance status checked, battery on, electric hydraulic pumps on, landing gear lever down, ship's library checked. RS mode selectors,
hello, stand by, I'll call you back in a minute.
nav, gear pins,
Check brake, these are
1 to 3 removed,
Charlie, please.
light test, I always forget that one. Okay, and it's working except for the pack lights, but that is known. And that is actually on the MEL as well, we'll find it in flight.
Thank you.
Okay, light is checked,
807,
oxygen test 100%, yaw damper on, nav transfer display switches, normal and auto. So, for the fuel then, we need 6.7, we have 7.3 on board and 4 pumps on. Cabin utility IFE on, emergency exit lights on, fasten belts on.
Are you ready to copy the clearance?
Contract 102, ready to copy.
Contract 102, you are clear to your destination Copenhagen as fine. We are board of 2 Bravo departure from runway 13 left. Cabin issued is 7,000 feet, QNH 1021 and your squawk 4210.
Contract 102, cleared to Copenhagen, board of 2 Bravo departure, runway 13 left, climb 7,000 feet on QNH 1021, squawk 4210. Is there any chance for runway 13 right for the departure?
What are you are on the stand 115?
We're on Romeo 114.
Okay, in that case, if you are Romeo 115, the departure runway is 13 right, and the departure is Badov 1 Romeo. Sorry, I call you back. The departure runway is 13 right, and the SID is Badov 2 Juliet for contract 102.
Contract 102, Badov 2 Juliet departure, runway 13 right. Thank you very much.
Contract 102, read back correct. Thank you.
Okay, so 7,000 feet, squawk 4210, and in the FMC we have the Badov to Juliet departure, runway 13 right. Okay, continue with the checklist.
KLM 892, are you ready to copy this?
Fasten belts on, window heat on, air cannon pressed, Paxado bleeds on set, pressurization mode selector, auto, instruments, cross-checked, auto brakes, RTO, hydraulics,
to Bravo departure from runway 13 left,
normal.
7,000 feet, QNH 1.
So, speed brake,
and your squawk 4.
down attempt, park and brake set, stop and cut out switches normal, wheel by fire warning checked, radius radar and transponder set and standby, rudder and aileron trims 3-0, takeoff briefing discussed, PA not applicable, and holding at FMC CDU. Okay, they're pretty much done up here. Then let's get the... Okay, we need to get rid of the stairs first.
Contact
It's far enough for me.
Bye bye.
So, stairs release. Now this is going to be a little bit tricky, because GSX doesn't like an engine start on stand, but let's give it a try. Let's get the GSX guys. I just hope they are not going to pull out our power, because that might mess us over a little bit. Sam Farrow subscribed yesterday. I really enjoy your content and your streams. Keep it up. Thank you very much, Sam.
Taxi to hold
And Miranda, in real life I fly the 737-800 and... Well, I'm rated for the max, but haven't flown it yet.
Taxi to holding point Kilo 13 left fire, holding 01 and Alpha for Wizard 546 off.
Kilometer 2, we're ready to push and start.
Okay, so next thing for us to do is our takeoff performance. Let's go ahead and do that real quick. At least provided the virtual performance tool does actually start up, which it does now, so here we are. Virtual performance tool, and we take this version up here. Why are we in demo mode? Should be locked in.
Ryanair 8 Sierra Victor request push start.
Ryanair 8 Sierra Victor, start up and push back
I
up.
will use this stuff.
Lima.
Okay, I don't really know why the VPT is in demo right now. Stand by 1.
Skinner 3 Victor X-ray, very good evening, Budapest ground. We have information, Echo on board request a Patron.
Okay, this is much better. So GSX, thanks, we don't need to yet. So let's do a takeoff performance real quick. We are in the 737-800 steel brakes under EASA rules.
7 X-ray Victor, start up and push back up route,
So Budapest, runway 13 right. We'll take intersection Charlie, dry runway, wind 100 at 6, temperature 7, QNH 1021.
Budapest ground, hello.
And stand by a second for the takeoff. So before we do that, quick look into the FMC. And in here,
by Alpha and Papa
so zero fuel weight is 55.5. That is accurate to the plan. 62.9 the dross weight, and we are going to use that. So let's go on. That means we have 62 point.
Charlie, please.
Come on, 62.9. And for the CG, we'll just use whatever the aircraft does provide to us here. So that is a 22k takeoff at 39 degrees. Let's give that a try. 22k and 39 degrees, 88.8, flaps 5. Trim will take right from here, 5 units.
Scandinavian 3 Victor X-ray, you are clear to destination Copenhagen as fine. You are about off to Bravo departure
Set,
from runway
and
13
the
left.
takeoff speeds 138, 139, 144.
Is 1021.
FMC speeds are within 1 knot, so we are allowed to use the FMC speeds. Okay. And the final thing here, the minimum flap retraction altitude 1496. So let's set that one as well. They set 1021 on the QNH and 1496 is going to take a little while. But in the meantime we can continue with the checklist. Okay, complete FMC CDU. Set Amon and IS bugs. Come on, you keep scrolling. We have automatic, reduce 22k, speeds 38, 39, 43. Set. Stop trim 5.1 units. Come on. So stop trim 5.1 units. Set. Performance weight and balance 9 cent. Phones off. EFB. Airplane mode stowed. Flight windows and cockpit door. Locked, doors closed, passengers, we don't have any on board. Okay, complete. So, now comes the interesting stuff. Now comes the engine start with a thrust bleed. And you would find that in the AFCOM. Unfortunately, I'm not allowed to show you because it would be in my company manual. So we'll just have to take it from here. And you'll have to... well, I'm gonna read it out to you so that we are on the same line. So it's in the AFCOM, Supplementary Procedures, Chapter 7, Engines. And in there we have, starting with ground air source, non-normal checklist. And we've got to use that one, and the first thing we need for that is actually a ground air source. So we're going to request an air start unit. That is going to arrive any moment now. Contract 102, request startup, and we need to start one engine on stand before pushback.
Contract 102, startup approved.
Contract 102, startup approved. Okay, so
KLM 892.
she's bringing the air start unit and connecting it. So, let's start with the starting with ground air source checklist.
Thank you.
Engine number 1 must be started first, when clear to start. So, that is connected. Okay, when clear to start, we are clear to start now. APU air switch off. And then engine number 1 starts using normal procedures.
Kilo via exit point Lima and Alpha and hold short before Kilo.
Okay, so we do have dock pressure. And then let's do the before start checklist below the line. Air compacts off, anti-collision light on, parking brake set, transponder, alt off. Before start checklist complete. Okay, cockpit to ground. We are ready to start engine number 1. And starting number 1.
Event 3 Victor X-ray, startup and pushback approved, facing exit
The start
point,
procedure now is basically the normal start procedure, except for that we are doing number 1 first. And then we'll have the second checklist, which is going to be the engine cross-bleed start checklist. So, N2's rotating, all pressure increasing, and 1.
Contact tower on 118.1. Bye bye.
Engine 1, 76 Victor, bye.
Valves are operating. Data cutout, monitor 1, 2, 4, 6, 3, engine number 1 stable. Okay, continue the checklist. If external ground power is used, generator 1 switch on. After engine start, select generator 1 switch on prior to removing external power. So generator 1 on. And we can see the gen off bus light is extinguished. Okay, warning, to minimize the hazard to ground personnel, the external air should be disconnected and engine 2 started using engine cross-bleed start procedures. So that means we can now remove the power. Contract 102, request pushback. That ALAC is source of 2 that's associated.
Start correction, pushback approved, facing exit point Charlie.
Pushback approved, facing exit point Charlie, contract 102. Okay, so that's a pushback.
KLM 892, contact tower on 118.1. Bye bye.
What's it saying? You need to do what? Yeah, stop the engines. Thank you so much, GSX, for nothing. That's exactly the reason why I told GSX to prepare the pushback earlier. But at least we have a solution for that, so we'll do the turn nose to the left by 90 degrees. Distance to taxi line, let's take something short. Okay, that's the shortest we can do. Sure, we can do that in meters as well, 90 meters is fine. Get me my tuck, please. And the pushback is approved, so parking brake is off.
Cockpit to ground. Go ahead. We've been cleared for push and start, tail to the right. Copy that, ready for push, tail right. Heavy sprint brake, please.
Okay, brakes off.
Brakes released.
Standard 8 Sierra Victor, continue taxi to holding point Kilo, follow the KLM Boeing 737 in front of you.
Okay, here we go. Let's see how accurate or not that pushback is programmed. Random, I fully agree. The Prime livery does look pretty.
Channel 8 Sierra Victor, contact downwind on 118.
Okay, well, not a perfect pushback, but I'm happy with that. It's better than what GSX does most of the time.
Victor, contact 118, thank you for service, goodbye.
Pushback complete. Parking brake set. Brake set.
Okay, then. Let's continue with the checklist. Engine crossbleed start checklist. Caution. Do not attempt a crossbleed start until pushback is complete and the parking brake is set and the tug is disconnected and ATC clearance is obtained. Okay, let's talk to ATC once again. Contract 102, we are ready to perform the crossbleed start. Can you confirm the area behind the aircraft is clear?
Contract 102, the area is clear, and are you ready for taxi?
Contract 102, area is clear and we call you in 2 minutes for taxi. Stand by.
Roger, contract 102, call me when you are ready for taxi.
Okay, good. So, before using this procedure, ensure the area to the rear is clear. We've done that. Engine bleeder switch is on. Both on. APU bleeder switch off. Off. Pack switch is off. Off.
We are ready for
Isolation valve switch auto. This ensures bleeder supply for engine start. Okay, isolation valve auto. Thrust lever on the operating engine. Advanced thrust lever until bleed duct pressure indicates 30 psi. Okay, that's up here. So we'll increase thrust on the number 1 so that we can get a little bit more pressure. Normally you need like 35% N1 or something like that. Let's see how that is going to work on the PMDG. 35%, and we have more than 30 psi. Perfect. That's quite accurate. Okay, non-operating engine start. Use normal start procedures with cross-bleed air. Okay, so starting engine number 2. Timing. This should be a little bit slower than the normal start with APU bleed. Normally takes like 5 seconds longer or something. We have N2, all pressure, N1. See how it takes much longer now? Okay. Fuel on. What's the duct pressure showing? Still at 30. Good. This is the most dangerous part. At this part it would be easy if the duct pressure falls to get a hung start or a hot start. Okay, now it's at 52. So it's reached its self-sustaining RPMs. So, after started cutout, adjust thrust in both engines as required. And we have started cutout. Number 1 back to idle, and that's the engine crossbleed starts checklist complete. Okay, perfect. So now we can resume normal operation. Here's also a little threat in that it's very easy from this non-normal configuration of the pressurization panel to accidentally flick the isolation valve switch to the closed position because you're used to having to move it from the open position. So that's a bit of a thing there. Okay, flight control check. Full up, full down, neutral, full left, full right, neutral, rudders, left, right, neutral. Before taxi checklist. Generators on, APU off, start switch is continuous, probe heat on, anti-ice off, air conditioning, packs auto, bleeds on, isolation valve, auto, flaps, 5 required, 5 selected, and the green light. Step trim 5.1 set, start levers idle detent, flight controls checked, recall checked, before taxi check is complete. Contract 102, request taxi.
Contract 102, taxi to holding point Charlie, runway 13 right, via Golf.
Contract 102, taxi holding point Charlie 13 right via Golf. Okay, so that's pretty much straight ahead, slide right, first left. We're clear on the left, clear on the right. Config. Checked. And off we go. Let's bring it back to the taxi line first of all. So, clear left, clear right. Before takeoff checklist down to the line. Config, checked, flaps, 5, 5, green light, step trim, 5.1, set. Takeoff briefing, left seat takeoff, runway 13 right, flaps 5, noise abatement procedure number 1. Sit, straight out, left turn, climbing altitude 7000, which is an altitude, not a flight level. And in case of an engine failure, we proceed straight at 25 miles, climbing 4000 feet, that is safe above the MSA. Any questions? Okay, cabin, secure, before takeoff checklist complete down to the line. Okay, so Charlie is the next right, and we have actually taken figures for intersection Charlie as well. So exit Charlie to the right, that's what we'll do. Contract 102, ready for departure.
Contract 102, contact tower on 118.1. Bye bye.
118.1, contract 102, bye bye. Budapest Tower, hello, contract 102, ready for departure. Hotel Charlie, contract 102. Hey, brake set. So, if not otherwise instructed by tower, contact Budapest approach when passing 3000 feet. Which is going to be 122.975.
Scandinavian 3 Victor X-ray, contact Budapest approach on 229.75. 122.975, climb 3 Victor X-ray, correction, Scandinavian 3 Victor. Have a great evening, bye.
So, what are we waiting for? Contract 102, runway 13 right, cleared for takeoff. Bye bye. Okay, confirm the readback. Via Charlie, runway 13 right, cleared for takeoff. And clear left, clear right, before takeoff checklist below the line. MCP. Set, transponder, Tara, strobe lights on, landing lights on, before takeoff checklist complete. Who's put that light over there? That's certainly not supposed to be there. So, timing. Stabilized. Set takeoff thrust. Takeoff thrust set, indications normal.
knots.
Checked.
E1. Rotate. Positive rate of climb.
Gear up. LNF. One two two 975, contract 102. Bye. Okay, well, according to
Please
the chart,
confirm
we have
frequency
an automatic box.
120-375. Scanning Victor X-ray, proceed direct to APU, Alpha Bravo India Tango Uniform.
Direct to APU, 3 back X-ray.
Approach hello, contract 102, passing 3000, climbing 7000, out of 2 Juliet.
0, decimal 375, bye-bye.
Approach hello, contract 102, passing 3500, climbing 7000. Look up.
Contact 102, Buddhist approach, good evening, identified, climb flat level 240.
Contract 102, climb flight level 270.
Contact 102, climb flat level 240.
Confirm flight level 240, contract 102.
Correct.
Flaps up. Okay, then 240 it is. Set standard. Passing 46, climbing 240.
Transavia 6902, descend to 4000.
He said 4,000 feet.
Flaps up, no lights. Vina. After takeoff checklist. Air cannon press, 2.4, climbing. Set. Altimeters. Oh, not supposed to descend. 5-3, climbing 240 after takeoff checklist complete.
Right. Business terrible, contact over 181, sziasztok, jó leszállást. Probably van, köszi, jó munkát mutatott. Contract 102, proceed to APU, Alpha Bravo India Tango Uniform.
Direct AP2, contract 102.
Transavia 6902, please confirm descent to 4000.
AP2.
Yes, we are descending to 4,000 feet.
Execute.
Thank you.
LNF. Okay, one guy coming up there. But looks like we are just about avoiding him with this turn. Tactical use of directs, I like it. Good job, air traffic control. Altimeters, passing 100, climbing 240, 10 checks. Fuel balanced, 4 pumps, lights. Off APU, well, broken. Air conditioning pressurization, 4.1, climbing, and set. Fasten belts. Auto, recall, checked, 1 to 1.5. Monitoring, 10 checks complete.
Transavia 6902 via Catus, clear by 13 right. Departure established.
Via Cockpit, cleared LS for January 13 right, Patron 6902 and...
So, we'll just about climb out of the immediate vicinity of the airport, and then we'll talk a little bit about what's special in the freighter operation, and about a couple of special checklists that are there in the manuals, which do exist on the freighter, but not on the passenger versions.
Scandinavian 3 Victor X-ray, contact Bratislava radar on frequency 134, decimal 475. And a flight landing, bye-bye.
And let's go, full climb thrust.
Bratislava 134475, Scandinavian 3 Victor X-ray. Thanks, Ted, have a great evening, bye.
Пока.
Random, €30 donation. Thank you very much, my friend. Thank you very much. Packets away. Now the challenge is to get them delivered on time. Bootwin, did I make a takeoff tutorial? To be honest, I don't think so. But that doesn't mean that I can't do one. Which I probably will in the next couple of days. Alright, so from here on it's pretty much simply flying straight ahead, and the airplane can very well do that on its own as well. Command A. Checked. That's a new SOP, by the way. When the pilot flying engages the autopilot, the pilot monitoring has to visually verify the CMD on the PFD and then call checked. Just like the pilot flying, we keep seeing that every now and then. Everybody knows that modes on the autopilot have to be called out, but it seems like quite a lot of people actually don't know when and how to call them. So here is how we do it. We press, verify and call. So you press the button, like the autopilot, you verify the indication, which is the CMD, and then you call Command A. Just like when you were about to change, for example, to heading select, press, verify, and then call heading select. Or now, press, verify, LNAV. In my last recurrent simulator check, that actually was noticed for the colleague I've been flying with. Okay, and standby altimeter. Standard as well. Forgot about the standby earlier. You're supposed to do it when you have passed the MSA and when you're above 3,000 feet of the field elevation. By the way, something to notice in the airplane that we're flying right now. The Echo India Delta Alpha Delta is a former Ryanair aircraft, and the thing is easily like...
102, contact Bratislava radar, frequency 134.475. Thanks for flight, on a flight landing, goodbye.
134.475, contract 102. Thank you very much. Good evening.
Ryanair 4143, good evening, Bratislava radar contact, squawk 1000, direct RFOX.
Squawk 1000, direct RFOX, Ryanair 4143.
Lot 537, contact Budapest approach 122.975, cześć.
3 kilo, we ready for descent.
Lot 23 kilo, descent flight level 190.
Descent 190, lot 23 kilo.
Bratislava radar, good evening. Contract 102, passing flight level 228, climbing 240.
Contract 102, hello, Bratislava radar contact, climb flight level 340.
Climb flight level 340, contract 102.
Contract 102 requested level is 360, confirmed.
Contract 102, stand by. Okay. Contract 102, affirm. Okay, so, set. 340 tracked. Press, verify, call, VNAV. Okay, so, something to notice here. We are departing Budapest towards the north, and if we just about have a look into the Navigraph charts, then we are going to notice that there is quite a bit of terrain that can be found over there. So, if we have a look at this, we are directing towards Abidu, so we are just about in the area over here, close to Badov. We can see up to the north there are MSAs in the region 8,700, 6,700 and so on. So that is indeed quite some high terrain. But you are going to notice that we see none of this indicated on the navigation display, even though the terrain display is actually active. And the reason for that is that this aircraft is not equipped with the so-called terrain peaks mode. So the peaks mode is a mode of the terrain display, or a mode of the EGPWS to be accurate, which would show you the highest terrain that you have in your vicinity, regardless of your actual altitude. So that is what the majority of aircraft have installed nowadays, or at least the majority of 737 aircraft do. Now, the old Ryanair aircraft, like the Delta Alpha Delta, or indeed I believe the entire Echo India Delta series, they don't have that mode installed. In other words, we are only going to see terrain returns of terrain that is within 2,000 feet of our aircraft's altitude. And if the terrain is below that, as it of course is, even though there are some 2,000 meters tall mountains directly in front of us, we are not going to see any returns of those on the EGPWS. So that's something to be aware of. And I did notice that apparently Phoenix simulated the same in their A320, so they don't seem to have the peaks mode of the terrain display either. At least I never could get it to work. It just shows black, and only when you get down low you actually start seeing some terrain. So I believe they don't have it either, but our aircraft right here right now does not have it. It is an option in the PMDG menu, so you can select if you want to have that on or off. But in this aircraft it is off, which is accurate to the real Delta Alpha Delta.
Contract 102, proceed direct Hotel Delta Oscar VOR.
Contract 102, direct Hotel Delta Oscar VOR. Okay, Hotel Delta Oscar, and we will take some beam points for that. Execute. And nothing. That's also one of these things. When you get a direct and the pilot monitoring has executed the route, then he's supposed to say LNAV available, and the pilot flying responds LNAV after verifying that the mode is engaged. Now, a lot of people just say LNAVing instead of LNAV. It always gets me a smile when I think about it. It always makes me smile. Angle bank 10 degrees, and we're passing 300, quick check of the pressurization system, cabin altitude 5,500, differential pressure around 7.5, the cabin is still climbing, auto mode selected, bleeds on, APU bleed off, auto, and another 2 times auto, and the cabin pressure is set as well. Normally we have the flight deck temperature somewhere over here. That normally does provide a good temperature. You have to keep in mind, like right now, the sun is coming from somewhere over there, and the pilot who sits directly in the sunlight normally gets really hot. And that is not just in case they are female. So the pilot sitting in the sunlight normally gets really hot, so we might just about put that sun visor up here to help a little bit with that. While at the same time, the pilot sitting in the side that is not lit up by the sun, the pilot on that side normally starts to freeze, while the other guy is sweating. Welcome to the lovely world of the Boeing 737 aircraft.
Scandinavian 3 Victor X-ray monitor Unicorn 122.8, good day.
Alright, so, almost there, almost at cruise level. Vertical speed.
Scandinavian 3 Victor X-ray monitor Unicorn 122.8, good day.
That Scandinavian doesn't bother anymore. One to go. So, at MAF 01 we will enter check airspace.
Bratislava radar, good evening. Sky Travel 18.
So MAF 01, we're gonna put that in here. And then Hotel Delta Oscar is gonna be the point where we will
Flight level 350.
enter German airspace. So we have the FIR boundaries marked on the navigation display already.
Are you able to climb 360?
Affirmative, we are below 360.
Radar contact, climb flight level 360 and squawk 1000.
Squawk 1000.
Strangely enough, in my airline, we don't call out any changes that occur on their own. So Alt Acquire, for example, right now is not called.
Contract
And Alt Hold isn't either.
Bratislava.
Contract 102, go ahead.
Slower aircraft at level 360, same route, ahead, same direction, and flight level 360. So, are you able to take 380?
Stand by, we call you back, contract 102. Okay, slower aircraft, we will probably not want to slow down, so what we can do now is to have a look into our flight plan and see what makes more sense, either staying here in 340 or going up level 380. So let's bring up Sim Toolkit Pro once again and have a look into the flight plan. Now they say over here that if we climb 2,000 feet higher, so plant level we can see up here is 360, and in the operational impact section it says if we go 2,000 feet higher, then we're gonna save 10 kilos of fuel, but we will take a minute longer than if we stay down. If we go 2,000 feet lower, which is basically 340 as we are right now, we're gonna burn 1 kilo more fuel, and we'll also take a minute longer. In other words, in this case it's clear we can save that fuel, so 380 is the more efficient level. Another check that's always worth doing is going down here into the wind data block. Just take a waypoint somewhere in the middle. For example here, Hotel Delta Oscar. 380 is showing 239 at 17, 340, 207 at 16. So thinking about it, where is that wind about to come from?
Contract 102, you leave my airspace, so take action is up to you. Bye bye.
Contract 102, 122.8, and we will climb flight level 380. Thank you very much. Okay, so over to Unicom. That means we'll at least have a little bit of silence. And then, as we just said, it does make more sense to climb to flight level 380. The wind is better up there as well, so we are going to do just that. Set. 380 checked. VNAV, and then we'll go Alt Intervent. That's going to update the FMC, as we can see right now. And then we also have to set it on the cabin pressurization, so we're 380 once, twice, and 3 times. It's below the optimum still. And we are monitoring 1 to 1.5. And we've got an FMC message, unable 250 knots at max, so we're gonna deal with that later. Let's get the plane up to cruise level, and then I will show you a little bit of stuff that is special to the freighter operation that we're about to do. So we're passing a beam MAF-01. We can use that one real quick for a little fuel check. And first of all, Jan, thank you very much for the 129... which currency is that? Charlie Zulu Kilo. Is that Czech? Well, thank you very much for the donation, my friend. Thank you very much. Okay, so let's have a look into our flight plan real quick. And here we are. So, a beam Marvor, 22 minutes we are supposed to have. We're 21 minutes in the air, but we got that direct that really cut us short there. Supposed to have 4.8, and we have... that's 5.4, but we uploaded 600 extra. We're exactly 600 above the fuel that we are supposed to have, so we are doing very good on the fuel. And we are 1 minute ahead of the schedule, which is always much appreciable. And the final check, fuel used adds up to 1.8 plus 5.7, so that is 7.4. So that pretty much adds up to what we uplifted on the ground. One to go. I somewhat always like this perspective here. One of my personal favorites. Like the GoPro perspective. And Carter, what are we hauling today? Actually, that is a very good question, and if I'm totally honest with you, the pilots typically don't know unless dangerous goods are involved. We can talk a bit about dangerous goods in a few moments when we're at cruise level, but unless dangerous goods are involved, the pilots typically don't get to see what actually is inside all those pallets and containers that you're loading in a freighter aircraft. Okay, reaching cruise level. Here's a little bit of one of those 737 isms, which is when you're leveling off at cruise level. Once VNAV path has engaged, it is company SOP that we're going to max continuous thrust, verify, and then call out conset. Now, if you are flying and pressing that button a bit early, that max continuous button, then what can happen is the moment the airplane has leveled off, it basically goes internally through a VNAV cruise logic change again, and that is going to reset your con towards cruise, and then you just have to do it again. So always wait a tiny bit until you've leveled off in 380, and then press that con button. Another SOP that we are doing is to always set the destination QNH from the meta that we had prior to our flight. So for that we are just about going straight into the flight plan We can see destination Copenhagen 1020 is forecast, so we will put that one straight in. And that should normally only be done on the pilot monitoring side, but since I linked them up to save me having to set the altimeter twice all the time, I'm just setting it on my side as well now. Apart from that, the other thing we did already, that is to select the FIR boundaries on the fix page. So we can see now up here at Hotel Delta Oscar we are going to enter German airspace. They will probably have some ATC online again. And then we can have a quick look into the flight plan once more. And we can find our border to Copenhagen, which is over here at Nexo. No, sorry, the Copenhagen is over here at COSEP. So COSEP is going to be the next border that we have to mark on the navigation display. And here it is, COSEP. Alright. So, 312 miles to go to the top of descent. That is going to be at 13. We have 32 right now, so 40 minutes to go. Which leaves us with a little bit of time to talk about cargo operations. And the one special thing that I do want to talk about here is actually the cargo fire. So, in the passenger aircraft, for obvious reasons, if you have a cargo fire, or if you have any kind of fire in the cabin, you just need to bring that airplane right on the ground. And in my latest recurrent simulator that I've had just about a week ago, we did simulate an exercise where we had a bomb on board, and that bomb exploded and set the galley on fire. And we learned a couple really interesting things there. Of course, the exercise was set in a way that this happened while we've been right over the Atlantic Ocean, cruising towards the Canary Islands. And we had to bring the airplane down somehow. Now, the average statistics of passenger aircraft that catch fire in flight show that the survival time before the aircraft becomes uncontrollable is between 15 and 20 minutes, with the average at 18 minutes. In other words, if your plane catches fire, you have 18 minutes until you have to be on the ground, or on average, your aircraft is going to become uncontrollable and will crash. Now, 18 minutes is not a lot. If you think about it, normally from the time we leave cruise level to the time that we reach the ground, we have approximately half an hour. In other words, we have to be twice as fast, which for us means we have to do an emergency descent and then really put the airplane on the nearest possible airport. And I'm not talking about the nearest suitable, but the nearest possible. And if there is no possible airport around, it is even more favorable to ditch the airplane in the Atlantic than to fly it for a longer time to the coast when the airplane is really on fire. So, fire is a big threat. Now, what can we do about it then? Well, in the passenger aircraft, not so much. Of course, the cabin crew is going to carry out their drills, and we will end up with a couple of we will end up switching a couple of things off, and yeah, that's all fine, but the actually really interesting stuff starts when you're flying a freighter aircraft. So give me 1 second to bring that checklist up for you. The checklist you would call for when you are encountering fire is the smoke, fire, or fumes non-normal checklist. And you can find the checklist on page 8.8 in the QRH, and I'm just about to get it out for you so that we can have a look at it. Alright, and here it is. So let's have a look at that non-normal checklist. And we can see very much that the smoke, fire, and fumes checklist, as we have it over here, the very first step there is diversion may be needed. So even before putting up the oxygen masks, the first thing we're discussing there is getting into the mindset of a diversion. because, as we said earlier on, we only have approximately 18 minutes on average. Then we go ahead with the checklist, and we don the oxygen mask and don the goggles as needed. Basically, the first steps are ensuring that we stay alive. The next couple of steps here try to isolate the fire and fight it as far as we can. So, in case we would go through the checklist, we would do stuff like this. So, the best transfer switch would go off, that is up here. Off cabin utility switches, off IFE passenger switch, off recirculation fan switches, off, and instruct the cabin crew to turn off the in-flight entertainment and PC power switches as installed, then APU bleeder switch off. So these steps that we are carrying out over here basically try to isolate that fire, and in case it is an electrical fire, it would try to extinguish that fire by cutting power to some essential systems. Now, I'm quickly going to reverse that since we don't have a fire on board right now. Okay. So, the next part of the checklist then, step 12, is anytime the smoke or fumes become the greatest threat, we go to the smoke or fumes removal checklist. And from here on, we are basically running something that is related to passenger aircraft. The next step in the checklist then, choose one. Source of the smoke, fire, or fumes is obvious and can be extinguished quickly, or source of the smoke, fire, or fumes is not obvious or cannot be extinguished quickly. And if we're able to extinguish it, then basically the checklist leads us a little bit further down. So if the source is obvious and can be extinguished quickly, isolate and extinguish the source. If possible, remove power from the affected equipment by a switch or circuit breaker in the flight deck or cabin. Then we go to step 14 and we verify if the source is confirmed extinguished or if it is not confirmed extinguished. And if it is confirmed, we can continue the flight at the captain's discretion. So that is something that we would do, for example, in case an oven caught fire and we've been able to extinguish it and absolutely make sure that there is no further damage in the aircraft. Another example for that would be if a passenger's PED might catch fire and maybe set a carpet of the aircraft on fire as well. Then we know where the source came from. We could confirm that we've been able to extinguish the fire and there's nothing going on. In that case, continue the flight at the captain's discretion, restore unpowered items at the captain's discretion. And that would be the checklist completed, and go to the smoke or fumes removal checklist as needed. But if we are not able to extinguish this, then we're going to go on here and we'll switch on. We'll switch off a little bit more stuff and really try to isolate that fire. But what are we going to do then, in case we are actually flying a cargo aircraft, or in case we are not able to complete that checklist? Well, that's where stuff is getting a lot more interesting, especially in the freighter aircraft. Because in the freighter, you might be carrying dangerous goods that are not allowed to be carried on passenger operations. And that could, for example, be goods that produce their own oxygen, so you are not able to remove oxygen from that. Or you might have other dangerous goods. Now, if you're interested in dangerous goods, we might talk about it a little bit later on, but believe me, it is a very boring and very exhausting topic. So, I might cover them briefly later on if you guys want it, so do let me know in the comments below, but believe me, it's gonna be boring, and for flight simulation it is not gonna be interesting as well. Anyway, the one thing that we can and will be doing is this. We have another checklist for freighters only, and this is actually a checklist that we would only use for freighters. So we're in the flight crew training manual over here, and we have this expedited descent for freighter airplanes checklist. And this is something that in my latest recurrent simulator I've actually asked the instructor, why don't we use this on the passenger aircraft? Because it does seem like an interesting procedure. So let's read through it a little bit. And this one is for the 600 to 900 ER only, because those are the only versions that can be converted, because if we look up here, the flight crew training manual is for the MAX as well. So this only applies to the NGs. This section describes general technique associated with accomplishing the cargo fire non-normal checklist. The expedited descent is a separate and different maneuver from the rapid descent. So rapid descent is what you would be using in case of an emergency descent. The rapid descent is designed to bring the airplane down smoothly to a safe altitude. The expedited descent maneuver is designed to maintain flight level 250 as long as possible. Descent from flight level 250 is only started when an expedited uninterrupted descent to the lowest safe altitude or 3000 feet above field elevation at maximum airspeed can be accomplished. This shortens flight time below level 250 to minimize the severity of the fire in an oxygen-rich environment. Intermediate level of below level 250 and extended flight at low airspeeds are avoided. So the topic over here is obviously in the cargo aircraft, what you can do is just depressurize the airplane. And if you would depressurize that airplane, then you might be able to starve any fire of oxygen. So they refer to the cargo fire non-normal checklist over here. I'm not 100% sure if we actually have that in the PMDG QRH, but let me scroll up a little bit and see if we do have that in here. So, fire protection, cargo fire, 8.14, perfect, we do have it. So let's have a look at that. And here we are, cargo fire non-normal checklist. Now, this really looks like it is not designed for the freighter aircraft, but the steps do seem to match it. So, it's associated with the forward or aft cargo fire light, which are basically those we have down here. So, if we do that test once more, those are the lights. We only have forward and aft up here, but in the freighter we have the main deck installed as well. So those are the lights that we are looking at. And what we would do is the following. Cargo fire arms, which affect that compartment, confirm, push. So that is pretty much up here. Let's say we have the main compartment. You confirm it, you push it. Let's try to put a little bit of light on, then you're going to see it a bit better as well. So you push that in, and then cargo fire discharge switch, push and hold for 1 second. That is this one. I'm not going to push it now because I don't want to break all the lovely parcels that Grandin has dispatched over here. So the discharge light may need up to 30 seconds to illuminate, and then you go ahead, you turn the recirculation fan switches off, the pack switches to high, cabin utility switch off. This prevents galley chiller exhaust from carrying smoke or fumes into the cabin. And then you plan to land at the nearest suitable airport. So basically what you're doing here is recirculation fans off, because they would carry the smoke from the cabin into the flight deck. And then you switch the packs to high in an attempt to get rid of the smoke that has accumulated in the cabin. The reason I said earlier that I believe this checklist that we have in the PMDG QRH is not designed for the freighter aircraft is not only because the main deck fire light is missing over here, but also because this does not try to depressurize the cabin. But in the freighter aircraft, it would be an option to actually depressurize the cabin. In the passenger aircraft you cannot do that for obvious reasons. In the freighter you can. And if you depressurize the main cabin, then obviously you will have a lot less air, which means you will have a lot less oxygen, which means that you will hopefully be able to starve the fire of oxygen. The fire needs 3 things: heat, oxygen, and that is the most important point, oxygen. So if you can remove any of the 3 sources of the fire, and oxygen is one of them, that means you can extinguish the fire. So, that's the cargo fire checklist that we see referred to in here in the QRH. Now let's go ahead, because this is quite an interesting technique that we see covered in here now. So, first of all, Mikhail, thank you very much for the 30 CZK donation. So, let's go ahead with the checklist. There is no cargo fire extinguishing capability for the main deck cargo fire, for the main deck cargo compartment fires. In other words, we can't really extinguish the fire. So if we descend to a lower altitude early, that means we'll have a lot of oxygen in there, and that might just make the situation worse. So let's go ahead here with the descent chapter. Proper descent planning is required to ensure the airplane arrives at the lowest safe altitude of 3,000 feet above field elevation in the shortest possible time. And I've just got to contact me from air traffic control, so let's quickly call them. 33575. Claim radar, hello, contract 102, flight level 380 in mode Hotel Delta Oscar.
Contract 102, München radar, schönen guten Abend, identified flight level 380.
Contract 102, sorry, say again.
You are identified as flight level 380.
Thank you. My headset turned itself off because nothing happened for a while. Okay, let's continue with the checklist.
I have 70 Delta X-ray.
The checklist provides an approximate distance from an airport at sea level in track miles to begin the descent from level 250. Do not delay the approach and landing once the descent is started. The checklist provides an approximate distance from the airport to begin decelerating for the approach and landing. So, this is how we would do it. Distances must be adjusted for actual conditions, such as headwind or tailwind, thrust requirement for anti-ice, or an airport elevation other than sea level. Create two fixes and entering the distances on the bearing distance line on the FMC fix info page. One to mark the descent from 250 and the other to mark the deceleration point may assist in situational awareness and planning. Note, use of the autopilot, autothrottle and level change mode is recommended to protect airspeed and altitude and reduce crew workload for the expedited descent. Use of vertical speed mode is not recommended. And note, the use of auto brakes is recommended because auto brakes provide symmetrical braking and quicker application upon touchdown. However, when used properly, maximum manual braking provides the shortest stopping distance. For the approach then, precise approach planning is required to ensure the airplane is stabilized on final approach in the landing configuration and to avoid a go-around. Approaching level of altitude of 3,000 feet above field elevation or higher as appropriate, retract the speed brakes before adding thrust, retract speed brakes smoothly while maintaining the selected speed. At 15 nautical miles from the runway, set the MCP speed to approach speed and immediately extend the speed brakes, which prevents the auto throttle advancement and provides shorter time to configure. Upon reaching flaps up speed, retract the speed brakes, extend flaps and landing gear on schedule, plan a normal approach and landing. If circumstances dictate the use of speed brake with the flaps extended, high sink rates during the approach should be avoided. So, when thrust requirements for anti-icing results in less than normal descent rates with the speed brakes extended, slowing sooner than 15 miles from the runway and extending the landing gear sooner than in the normal configuration sequence may be accomplished. Note, use of the autopilot and autothrottle with approach mode is the recommended technique for approach and landing. Use of vertical speed mode is not recommended. So here it gets interesting. This is basically how you carry out this maneuver. So, we're in the following situation here. We're in the freighter, we have a fire which we are not able to extinguish. We want to keep the airplane at high altitudes to starve the fire of oxygen as much as possible and to suppress the fire as much as possible. And therefore we do not want to carry out a normal descent. Contract 102, proceed direct to Monarch. Okay. Monarch.
Contact Langen radar frequency 124.725.
Execute. Enough available?
124.
Oh no.
25, Langen radar, ciao.
Alright, so as said, we are in the situation with the cargo fire compartments, either the main deck or the lower compartments on fire, and we are not able to extinguish it. Our aim is to land the airplane as soon as possible. In the passenger aircraft, we would just descend it straight down and search for a landing spot. In the freighter aircraft, we are going to depressurize the aircraft, which is going to aid very much in suppressing the fire. We'll level off in flight level 250, and at approximately 50 nautical miles from the runway, extend the speed brakes, descend at VMO MMO to the lowest safe altitude of 3000, whichever is higher. In other words, you're going to keep 340 knots all the way down to 3000 feet. Approximately at 3000 feet, retract the speed brakes and maintain VMO. So you're going to keep the airplane at 340 knots to minimize the time that you are spending. And at 15 miles from the airport, slow to the approach speed, use the speed brake as needed. And intercepting the final, extend flaps and gear on schedule. So that is the expedited descent in the freighter, which is really a procedure that is going to keep us at the high altitude as long as possible, and that is going to help us to get the airplane to the airport as fast as possible. So, on my last recurrent simulator training, I asked the instructor why we are not doing this in the passenger aircraft. Obviously, we are not going to depressurize the cabin, since we do want our passengers to survive the flight in the best case. However, even without the cabin depressurized, in my opinion, this would provide the possibility to get a burning aircraft down to an aircraft as quickly as possible. And, CK, can you make a video demonstrating these emergency descents? That is a very good idea. I'm going to do that in the next couple of days.
8 will be fine.
So, I guess the reason why we're not doing this in my airline is because we do want our aircraft, or because we do want to standardize procedures, and especially in a situation like this, we don't want to do anything that might throw the pilots even further out of the ordinary.
124.725, Philadelphia, Bravo, Dankeschön, tschüss.
But for the freighter, this is a very handy procedure, and from somebody I know who is flying this particular aircraft that we're currently sitting in, I know that they are actually practicing this procedure in the simulator, because it does provide a great relief on such maneuvers. Alright, that pretty much concludes the look at the expedited descent procedure, which really was the primary procedure that I wanted to show you on this approach, on this flight. Apart from that, what is different in cargo operations than it is in passenger operations? Well, first of all, on cargo aircraft, you are allowed to transport some stuff that would otherwise not be permissible on a passenger aircraft, because it would be too dangerous. In other words, for cargo pilots, life is a little bit more dangerous than it is for passenger pilots, because you are allowed to carry greater amounts of dangerous goods than on passenger aircraft. Of course, cargo aircraft have another big improvement over the passenger flights, in that you don't have to deal with all those passengers complaining, with the passengers being delayed, and so on. So cargo is usually there, is sitting on the tarmac waiting to be loaded. The moment the last parcel is in, you're gonna head straight off to your destination. And at least here in Germany, cargo operations is also very well timed and is following a very tight, but a very good schedule as well. So, for example, the German cargo airline Aerologic is advertising for new pilots by saying that they do... One moment. 124.175, contract 102, cheers. Radar, hello, contract 102, flight level 380 in Mount Monarch.
Contract 102, radar identified, hello.
Right, so, at least the way cargo operations are working here in Europe, they are timed very precisely. If a single flight is delayed, the freight may miss its connection, and who knows when the next connection flight is gonna go. So for example, DHL and Lufthansa Cargo, they're operating scheduled cargo flights. So the flights are scheduled in a way that the long haul arrives at the big hubs. So for example in Leipzig, in Cologne, in Frankfurt, in Paris, you name it, just in a moment that the cargo has sufficient time to connect to a short or medium haul flight that is going to bring it to its destination. So for example, the German airline Aerologic is offering a service where if you bring a package to the shipper until I believe 4 o'clock PM in Asia, they guarantee it's going to be on the table in Europe at 8 AM the next morning. In other words, that 777 going from Hong Kong to Leipzig has to be absolutely on time, which means they are going to fly whichever cost index it takes to get that airplane to Leipzig in time. Then in Leipzig, the cargo from that 777 is going to be loaded onto the DHL 757s and A300s, which are then going to distribute it all the way around Europe. And of course, those have to fly on time as well, so they can't wait for any delayed cargo, which means that they are just going to go on schedule, be the cargo there or not, because there is a lot more cargo that at its respective destination is waiting for that delivery truck to pick it up to actually bring it to the customer. And overall that ensures a very high level of efficiency in cargo operations here in Europe. Of course, that is talking about scheduled cargo operators and not talking about charter flights, which is an entirely different world. But that is the kind of operation that is going on here, and that is actually a very, very, let's call it pilot-friendly operation, because it does mean that you are probably gonna be home by the time that you're scheduled to be home. Ryan, DYC, I never got a follow-up email from IndyBuilds for the giveaway. Okay, I'm going to send them another email, but I actually sent them something as well today and haven't received an answer yet, so I'm not 100% sure what is going on there, but I will get in touch. So Ryan, if you haven't received it by tomorrow afternoon, just drop me another email please and I will handle it, okay? Then Mario, if I remember correctly, the oxygen percentage stays constant with altitude. Will depressurizing the cabin be effective enough to extinguish the fire? Okay, so first of all, you're absolutely correct. The percentage of oxygen stays constant with increasing altitude. However, what is different is that the total amount of air is going to decrease as you increase your altitude. So for example, at 18,000 feet or at flight level 180, you will have only 50% of the air that you have at ground level. In other words, even though the oxygen amount or the oxygen percentage in the air of 21% stays constant with altitude, you will still only have half the total oxygen available because you only have half the total amount of air at flight level 180. And then that thing is going to go up, so at around flight level 340 it is divided by another half, and so on. So you're right, the percentage of oxygen stays the same, but the total amount of air decreases, and therefore you have less oxygen available as well. By the way, that is a pretty tricky ATPL question that they really try to annoy you with in your general ATPL theory. But the overall trick is just remembering how it works, and that the percentages stay constant, the total amount of air decreases with altitude. Which, by the way, is also the reason why our indicated airspeed is less here at cruise level than our true airspeed. So, you can see we're only doing 249 knots indicated, but 450 knots true airspeed. And the indicated airspeed is nothing else but the dynamic pressure that is being measured at the pitot probes. And obviously, since we have less air available at higher altitude, that means that the pressure is less as well. And that's why the indicated airspeed is less with increasing altitude than the true airspeed of the aircraft.
Jumping 7 Victor, direct Volvo.
Direct Volvo, jumping 7 Victor.
So, I hope that answers your question, and I hope that you guys like this little excursion into the world of cargo operations. We're nearing our top of descent already with just about 80 miles to go, so let's go ahead and prepare for our arrival in Copenhagen. So, they have... Do they have an ATIS online? Let's have a look. Don't need this anymore, but we do need this. So, Copenhagen, arrival ATIS 122.75. Let's see if we can listen to that.
If using error 2210 or earlier, the 5 controller at first contact upon landing to take left continue taxi by Alpha hold short delta long rollout on request. At first contact with approach, take aircraft type. This was Copenhagen arrival information India.
Jumping 7 Victor, expect further climb in about 1 minute to change.
This is Copenhagen arrival information India. At 1950, expect IELS approach. Runway in use for landing 04 left. Expect outer start. Visual approach on request. Transition level, flight level 60. Wind 040 degrees, 12 knots. Visibility 10 kilometers or more. Light rain. Clouds broken 1,400 feet. Temperature +3. Dew point +2. QNH1019. New start in effect with error 2211. Make sure you have updated your database. If using error 2210 or earlier, the 5 controller at first contact upon landing to take left continue taxi by Alpha hold short delta long rollout on request. At first contact with approach, take aircraft type. This was Copenhagen arrival information India.
Okay, quite a bit of stuff there in the arrival ATIS, but I really like the fact that they are doing this kind of stuff nowadays. So, first of all, they are splitting between an arrival and a departure ATIS, just like they are doing in real life. So that you can be sure that there is only that information in there that is really important for your flight. So, they set QNH 1019er, and now we compare this with the QNH that we have pre-selected from our flight plan, which used to be 1020. In other words, that really helps. To make sure that you have understood that QNH correctly. So now we are setting it down to 1019er, since that is the latest available from the ATIS. Okay, from here on, we heard on the ATIS that they are using the Alpha stars and that ILS 04 left is in use. So, quick look in the FMC. We have the Monarch 3 Alpha star and the ILS 04 left. What we can do is speed 250 below flight hour 100. For the forecast page, we are going to cheat a little bit. I will enter the altitudes, and then I'm just going to use the FMC's request function to get me that data. Transition level they set on the ATIS is going to be 60, and we have 1019 as the QNH. Takes a little while to request that data, but we should have it momentarily. Here we go. And load. Thank you very much. So, COSAP is going to be our next FAR boundary, so let's take COSAP. We should be able to copy it out. Okay, found the bug here. Well, then we're just going to use page 2. Runway 04 left.
Roger, KLM 18 November, direct Monarch.
So, 3 times the altitude ring is going to be 114. Then we need a 10-mile ring. And we remember from the ATIS, the clouds are broken in 1,400 feet in light rain. In other words, we are in VMC, so we're going to take a 4-mile ring. From the arrival, Monarch, Coda, Naxo is pretty much what we're familiar with. Naxo should be maximum of 250 knots, not exactly 250, so changing that, and Naxo below flight level 90. Thereafter we are going to get ATC instructions, and what we will do next is have a quick look at the Navigraph charts, which we do have over here. So first of all, don't synchronize it, and let's get rid of the charts from Budapest. Thank you very much. So, Monarch 3 Alpha, Monarch, Codem, Naxo, we are familiar with that. And then we're going on to downwind Charlie Hotel 731, 724, and Dopam at 220 knots and below 4,000 feet. But chances are good that we are just going to get a direct approach if traffic permits. So if Naxo is planned below flight level 90, and we can see the MSA ring up here is 25 miles, so we are round about a little bit high at that point, but it will be sufficient to actually get us in. But what we can of course do is just to calculate a direct from Coden to the 10-mile center line, which gives us flight level 96 at Coden. So erase that once again, and then we'll just put 96 below at Coden, and that is going to give us an accurate path so that we can fly straight in if we do get it from ATC. Alright, so that's that part of the setup completed there. Then let's get out our charts. ILS runway 4 left approach, what is in here, frequency is 110.5. And the course is 037. Minimums on this one, Cat 1, 235 feet, so that is going to be quite a lot of turning now. Get the thing down.
Good evening, Corona 9 with Mike. Execute November Lima 14, setting 3,700 feet.
And I'm turning, and I'm turning, and I'm turning. Any SpongeBob fans in here?
Confirm, climbing flight level 280.
And here we are, 235.
Climbing flight level 280, Corona 9 with Mike.
Okay, so that's that part of the setup completed, and the last thing we do have to do is calculate our landing performance. So let's get out the OPT once more and have a look into that. Here we go. So we are going to Copenhagen. Runway 4 left, 2.5. It is a wet runway. Wind 040 at 12. Temperature 3 on 1019. We'll probably have the engine anti-ice on at that point, and let's go ahead with some calculations then. So, landing weight. We're burning 600 kilos, which makes 59 tons exactly. And then in here we go for 59 tons. Oh! Here you go. Command A, check. Okay, better. So, 59 tons, calculate that. Waterbrake 3, landing distance 1953 with idle reverse. That does look good enough for me. And I would say we take it just like that. So, auto brakes 3 and flap 30 landing. They do want us to vacate the runway as soon as possible in Copenhagen, so if we look at the chart, we're landing on runway 04 left over here, and that is landing over here like this. So we'll probably vacate Alpha 7, but we will ask ATC for a long rollout, so they'll hopefully approve us to vacate the runway at the end here via Echo 1. Then we would taxi Probably via Bravo, runway 12, Golf 2, Golf, and we're parking on the cargo apron up here. That shot is 10-9 Charlie, let's get that out as well. 10-9 Charlie, and I'll take the parking stand shot up here as well, just in case they send us somewhere over there. I find this quite a bit easier to use than the general airport shot. Okay, and then this is our cargo stands up here, and that is pretty much everything that we will need. Okay, descent checklist please. And we have a message, reset MCP altitude. Okay, let's request descent. And then we'll do the checklist. Contract 102, request descent.
Contract 102, descent flight B290.
Descent level 290, contract 102.
Scan 11,
I don't know why that autopilot keeps disconnecting, but, well. Okay, set. 290 checked. VNAV. We're a little bit high right now. So let's close the thrust lever manually. We'll often do that in the real aircraft as well. The auto throttle pulls it back really smoothly, but if you do need to get down, you can just take it and slam it back to the idle stop. And now we are a little bit high on profile, so about 1,000 feet. Let's increase that target speed for the descent to 80, and you can see we're right back at profile. Actually below the profile. 276, something like that. A little bit high, but we should be able to catch that up by the speed we still need to pick up. Okay, so that is the preparation completed. Descent checklist please. Pressurization, land out 0, anti-ice, off, approach with fuel, discussed, IS and altitude box, checked and set, descent checklist complete.
Direkt so through Luft auf der Tank, Mike, danke. Okay, dann 18 November, descent flight B290.
Okay, 290, okay, dann 18 November.
Scan 11, 3 Victor X-ray, descent flight B200 at 2,500 feet per minute operator. Scan 11, 3 Victor X-ray, descent flight B200 at 2,500 feet per minute operator. Scan 11, 3 Victor X-ray.
3 Victor X-ray.
Please listen to the frequency. Scan 11, 3 Victor X-ray, descent flight B200 at 2,500 feet per minute operator.
The level 200 at 2,500 feet per minute operator.
Victor, contact Maastricht 133.
And Scandinavian 3 Victor X-ray. In case you're listening to my live stream, do turn that ATC up a little bit, because he does seem pretty desperate when you don't answer. No problem. Why is it disconnecting the autopilot once again? I have a feeling I know why. There is a trim switch on my throttle quadrant. I have a feeling I'm hitting that one with my armchair. And of course, once you start trimming, the autopilot should disconnect. So if I press the trim switch intentionally right now, as you can see, it throws out the autopilot. And that is supposed to happen, of course. Okay, we have 2,000 to go, vertical speed.
Charlie standby. Dot 1111, Unicom 122 destilate. Next frequency will be the indicator. Dot 1111, can you copy?
Mikhail, how do you know whether to land with flaps 30 or flaps 40? I made a video about that, where I go into detail explaining that. So I do recommend you look at that video. We have 1 to go, ES 1000, Pendular bank 25.
Frequency 133575, all Unicom, bye bye. 133575,
This controller could make his life easier if he was using standard phraseology here. He confused that pilot.
November Alpha Kilo. Correct. Yeah, welcome. Contact 102, descend flight level 200.
Contract 102, descend flight level 200. Set. 200 checked. VNAV.
472, camp flight level 300.
So we are a little bit high right now, but not very much. Let's see if it can just pick that back up by getting back on speed. What helps from time to time with the VNAV calculations as well is just to insert a direct to the waypoint we are currently flying to anyway. So let's take Monarch, put it back on top, execute, and what the airplane is doing now is that it is taking the current wind at our current altitude and is using that to recompute the VNAV profile. So it's got its wind forecast in here, but if the actual wind is different from that, just by taking a direct from the present position to the waypoint where you're going anyway, you can make VNAV recompute the path using the present wind. That really makes things quite a bit more accurate. And that's a little trick that we are using on the real aircraft to make things a bit easier.
Final flight level 310 is available. Request 310.
Gerald, how do you know where to put the fix info information?
Okay,
Oh, that's quite simple. So, on the fix page we always insert the landing runway, so runway 04 left. Then we insert a ring that is approximately 3 times our cruising altitude, so we've been at 38,000 feet, 38 times 3 is 114. Then we put a 10-mile ring in, and by that 10-mile ring we are supposed to be 3,000 feet above the field elevation, maximum speed of 200 knots, and flaps 1 needs to be extended. And then, if we are in visual meteorological conditions, so in VMC, we use a 4-mile ring, and if we're in IMC, in instrumental meteorological conditions, which can basically be summarized as a cloud base of 1,000 feet or less, do note that few clouds do not count as a cloud base. Scattered officially doesn't either, but I would take scattered into consideration here. And or the visibility is 5,000 meters or less. So if that applies, we use a 5-mile ring, otherwise we use a 4-mile ring. And that latter ring marks the point where we extend the landing gear on the approach. And if you're looking for a little bit greater detail, then I did explain that in my tutorial series on the 737, so do check that out if you haven't done so yet.
Russia reducing 270, confirm. 270 knots or less. Roger. Contract 102, speed 290 knots.
Contract 102, speed 290 knots.
11-3 Victor X-ray, speed 300 knots per flight.
Alright, 290, execute. And you can see now VNAV changes to VNAV path, and the auto throttle goes into FMC speed, so it's increasing that thrust all by itself, and now it's going to recapture that path over here. So if you're getting such a speed instruction on the descent, it's always a good idea to update it in the VNAV descent page and let VNAV do its thing, because it is recalculating the VNAV path for the higher drag profile that we're going to have at 290 knots. So this way we are returning to the most efficient path on the most efficient way. And now that we're approaching the path, it is going to increase its rate of descent from the standard 1,000 feet that it does below the path, back to capture it again. You can see the auto throttle is going to retard. And here we go.
Radar, guten Abend, this is 90 Victor, flight level 360, current direct medic.
Okay, we can look through that cloud. If we can look through it, it doesn't exist, so no anti-ice needed. Contract 102, sorry, say again.
Contract 102, contact Copenhagen radar, 121.375.
121.375, contract 102, bye-bye.
KLM 18 November, contact Copenhagen radar, 121.375.
121.375.
1 to go, vertical speed. Copenhagen, good evening, contract 102, descending, flight level 200, Monarch, speed 290 knots.
Scan 15, descent flight level 90, descent. Correct, descent flight level 90, clear SB3 Alpha arrival.
Copenhagen, control KLM 18 November with you.
And he's ignoring us.
Contract 102, Copenhagen control, radar contact. Descent flight level 120, cleared Monarch 3 Alpha arrival.
Contract 102, descent level 120, cleared Monarch 3 Alpha arrival. Okay, set. 120 checked. Level change. And for this we will need the speed brake, because we now have a fixed speed assignment.
8 November, Copenhagen control, radar contact.
But at least at the high speeds, like 290 knots, we won't have any problems capturing that profile again.
Roger. Clear to Monarch 3 Alpha arrival, and can you repeat the flight level?
Approaching some clouds there, engine ATIs on.
Break, Scandinavian 375, and that's heading 190.
Tie tie. Okay, and speed brake going back up.
Scandinavian 3 Victor X-ray, direct Charlie Hotel 724.
Charlie Hotel 724, Scandinavian Victor X-ray.
Country 42, Copenhagen control, radar contract.
Anchor Mango Joseph, which is 349, vacated on Foxtrot.
Ricardo, good evening, Captain. Something off topic, but when passing an ETOPS entry point in the 738, would the APU come on? Depends a bit on operator SOP. In my airline, we don't fly ETOPS. I know that some operators do, some operators don't, so... You know, not 100% defined there. And Sparktician, when on a star and the controller says cross waypoint so and so at 10,000, do you stay at 10,000 until given lower, or cross at 10,000 and continue descent without given lower? Absolutely stay at 10,000, but if the controller tells me that, like, cross waypoint so and so at 10,000, that is not even an actual clearance to descend to that level. So, at least according German AIP and what they do in Europe, you would have to say descent altitude blah blah to cross that level. Contract 102, speed 290. Contract 102, speed 250 knots. Okay, 250, and very important, put that in the FMC as well. I have a feeling we can delete this restriction here at Coden. We are probably going to fly full procedure as we're following somebody else anyway. Random, thank you very, very, very much for the €30 donation. Land safe till next time. I'm gonna do my best, and do be sure to look at that landing. If you can't see it now, then you can always see it in the replay. I'm gonna try to make it extra good for you, my friend. You are the best, Random. Okay. Enough. Contract 102, can we leave the frequency for approximately 1 minute?
Yeah.
Roger. Okay guys, I'll be straight back.
Copenhagen Control, good evening, KLM 52 Kilo, wing to flight level 370.
KLM 52 Kilo, Copenhagen Control, radar contact. Expect 223 Alpha arrival, report ready for set.
Expecting it for 2 Alpha, and we'll go report ready for the set. KLM 52 Kilo.
11 3 Victor X-ray contact, Copenhagen approach 119, that's right.
Approach 109, decimal 8, thanks, service circuit, through Victor X-ray.
Right, drawing 5 November Yankee contact, Copenhagen approach 119, that's right.
119 decimal 8, just, yeah, wing 5 November Yankee.
Right, I think Foxtrot Lima, contact Copenhagen approach 119 is right.
119 is right, thank you.
Alright, and I'm back. Sorry for that, guys.
Canadian 375, right, heading 300, cleared island for the 27.
So right heading 300,
Engine anti-air off. Contract 102 back.
Thank you. Descent flight level 90.
Contract 102, descent level 90. Set. 90 checked. Okay, so something to take into consideration as we are flying with the APU inoperative is that the guys on the ground have to be aware of our inoperative APU. So we have to call ahead and tell them that they do need to have a ground power available, since otherwise we cannot shut the engines down. So at this moment it is normally rather hard to actually reach somebody while you're still 100 miles out or so, because the guys from the operations on the ground, they only use handheld radios, which have a pretty bad reception range. So normally when you're like flight level 200 or so, like 60 miles out or so, that's normally the moment when you can start reaching them. So the pilot monitoring would now go on the COM2, dial the company's operation frequency, and then on the COM2 they would call ahead and tell them once again that the APU is inoperative. The ground handling should have that information available anyway. They should have it available anyway, but as a pilot you do want to be absolutely sure about that they actually have it.
Roger, free speed, KLM 18 November.
Because otherwise you will be stuck at the gates. Okay, vertical speed.
KLM 5 to kilo, descent flight level 120, cleared 230.
We're probably not number one in sequence with a speed restriction of 250 knots. That's why I'm just reducing the rate of descent to actually pick up that VNAV path over here. When you're doing 250 knots in idle, the airplane is normally doing something around 12, 13, maybe 1400 feet a minute. So if you're using VNAV path mode to intercept the path from below, which does 1000 feet a minute, it does take terribly long. That's why I sometimes favor using vertical speed over using VNAV to capture a path from below. At least when you're flying such slow speeds as we are doing at the moment. And to Katri, OMG, I lost an engine in the 737-600 on my way to Hawaii. What does XB mean? It means cross bleed, but open the engine in-flight start checklist in the QRH and you will see that it doesn't mean anything. So it's there, but you're not supposed to use it. So 1000 feet a minute.
Copenhagen Control, good evening, Lufthansa 1050, passing for level 125.
Lufthansa 1050, Copenhagen Control, radar contact, climb.
Engine NTS on.
So level 310, Lufthansa 1050.
1 to go, altimeters, passing 100, descending 90, 10 checks. Fuel balanced with 4 pumps on, lights on, angle of bank 25, air condition and pressurization 4.0 descending, and set, fast modes on, recall checked 1 to 1.5, deselected, 10 checks complete. All 9 is 08, contract 102.
And then 18 November, descent flight of 90.
Down to 90, 18 November.
Copenhagen, good evening, Lufthansa 211 with you, level
Copenhagen approach hello, contract 102, descending flight level 90 in Nexo, information India 737-800.
Like 102 Copenhagen approach, good evening, Lufthansa West, triple folder, information India correct. Descend 5,000 feet to next 10, 1 minus 230.
Vector 0 for left, descend 5000 on QNH 1019er, speed 230 knots, contract 102. Set, 5000 checked, set altimeter 1019, passing 9200, descending 5000, standby instruments. Set, and no flags.
Course on final 12 that Yoke, 5
Okay, quick first check. We have frequencies 110.5, set active nav 1, nav 2. Rings, runway 0 for left, 10-4, idents. Charlie Hotel, standby instruments set, and the course is 037, which checks with the FMC. Approach checklist, please. Altimeters and instruments, cross checked, approach aids, checked and set, approach checklist complete. So, speed 230, I'm gonna put that in here. Slowly starts getting dark already. Contract 102, descend 4000 feet. Set. 4000 checked. Okay, Serhan, a little bit late today. Have a nice stream. May I ask, what is the maximum pitch angle for touchdown in the 737-800? Well, the tail track is going to occur at 11 degrees, so you are supposed to keep it much below 11 degrees though, so there is nothing defined, except not to tail strike it, but personally I would keep it, you know, not above 6 degrees or so.
We don't want to 7.
The ideal pitch you're supposed to have is in the region of about 3-4 degrees. Because you're supposed to increase the or the pitch up only by about 1 or 2 degrees in the flare. Contract 102, speed 200. One to 0.2, contract 102, good evening. Final good evening, contract 102.
Contract 102, good evening, 3000 feet, speed 180.
Descend 3000 speed, speed 180, contract 102. Set, 3000 checked. Flaps 1, speed checked.
Heading 31, so Yoke 5 Yankee.
Canadian 3, Victor X-ray, contact tower 118, Pendular 1, have a great.
Tower 901, bye.
Copenhagen, very good evening. Ryanair 6 protocol overview.
Ryanair 6 Foxtrot and Lima, good evening, ready to contact. Descend 3000 feet, speed 180.
Descending 3000 feet, speed 180.
So guys, from here on I'm gonna keep it realistic, and I'll keep the sterile flight deck procedures. So please do write down any questions that you may have, and I am going to answer them once we are at the gate with the engines shut down, okay?
Ryanair 6 Foxtrot Lima, turn left heading 130.
Left heading 130, Ryanair 6 protocol Lima.
You're holding side November Yankee, turn right heading 010, you are clear Ryanair.
Right, heading 010, kind of left, 4 left for Yoke, 5 Yankee.
Off scale, okay, we can disregard that. That's a flight simulator issue. Vertical speed.
Yoke 5 November Yankee, maintain speed 180 until 6, 160 until 4.
186, 160 to 4, and then, Yoke 5 November Yankee.
Ryanair 6 Foxtrot Lima 10 left heading 070. Left heading 070, clear direct 04 left, Ryanair 6 Foxtrot Lima.
Okay, heading select.
Contract 102, turn right heading 310.
Contract 102, turn right heading 310. So we don't get any glide slope information as we're on the outbound leg, but on the standby instruments, here you can see it. You can see we're actually below the glide slope already, that's why I'm flying in vertical speed. To keep the continuous descent approach.
Yoke 5 November Yankee, contact the tower, 118.
Okay, center fix on top, execute.
That's one chest, Yoke 5 November Yankee.
Still quite a bit below the glide.
Contract 102, turn right heading 010, clear island, 04 left.
Contract 102, right heading 010, cleared ILS, 04 left. Okay, manual flight. Contract 102, A firm, we are doing 300 feet a minute to keep the CD8.
Copy, thank you. Ryanair 6 Foxtrot Lima, maintain speed 180 until 6.
Approach more rounds.
Maintain 180 until 6, 160 until 4, Ryanair 6 Foxtrot Lima.
Yeah, this thing doesn't really want to trim out. Localizer capture. I'm heading 037.
Contact tower 118.1, Ryanair 6 Lima. Contract 102, the Ryanair in front of me is a little slow, reduce speed to 160.
Contract 102, speed 160. Okay, flaps 5. Last one capture. 160 until 40, contract 102. So, glide slope capture, missed approach altitude. Was 3,000 feet inside.
Contract 102, you can now contact the tower 118.1, have a great evening.
Native 1, contract 102, bye bye. Hello, contract 102, ILS 04 left, 160 knots.
Hello, contract 102, here's of tower, continue approach, you are number 3.
Continue approach, contract 102.
2500.
Terrain noted. That is going to get pretty tight with the Rhino in front. If you look at the TCAS, he's exactly at 2.5 miles. And he's now going to start slowing down. The contract 102, shall we slow down the final approach already?
Sorry, say again, 102.
The contract 102, you want us to keep our speed or shall we slow down to final approach speed?
Contract 102, APM, slow down to minimum approach.
Reducing final, contract 102. Get down.
And Ryan 6 Fox Lima 0 for left, clear to land, the wind 04 to 810 now.
Beautiful left till run 6 over Lima.
He's now inside the 2.5.
5 November Yankee.
So, flaps 30.
And hotel runway 12.
We might want to do flap 40 just to keep that distance from the preceding aircraft. Well, let's go flap 40. Okay, our landing checklist. Start switches, continuous, recall, check, speed brake, arm green light, landing gear, down 3 green. Auto brakes 3 set, flaps 40, 40, green light, holding at landing lights.
1,000.
Tracked.
Contract 102, expect late landing clear.
Contract 102. Okay, it's pilot monitoring stuff, but I'll just turn the lights on already. That completes our landing checklist.
Skal der en 3 Victor X-ray?
500 continue.
Contact tower 118, decimal 575.
118, 575, thanks, have a great evening, bye, and 3,
You too. Break, contact 102, contact equation on the 0 for left, just land, with 04 to the 810 now.
0 for left, jet land, request long rollout, contract 102.
102, roger, approved.
Minimums.
Approved. Okay, minimum, continue, landing checklist is
Yankee,
complete.
contact tower 118, decimal 575.
Open flight approaches here with 5 November Yankee.
Runner 6 Fox Lima, welcome to Copenhagen, taxi via Alpha, hold short on the 12.
30.
Continue via Alpha, hold short on the 12, Runner 6 Fox Lima.
Okay, speed brake up. Thruster as normal. Manual brakes. Auto brake disarm. 100 knots. $80 knots. Hello there, Ryanair. $60 knots. Okay, starting the speed brake. Just adding a little bit of thrust so that we don't spend too much time on the runway, but it doesn't look like there's anybody immediately behind us. Okay.
Contact 102, welcome to Copenhagen. Contact 118, decimal 575.
118.575, contract 102, bye bye.
Ryan 6 Foxtrot Lima, thank you. 118, decimal 575.
118.575, Ryan 6 Foxtrot Lima, please.
Getting in front of the Yankee on Sunda, runway 12, the taxi on kilo 3 and 1 short of kilo.
Okay, that's fine. Taxi 12 on the kilo 3 and 1 short kilo, going 5 million Yankee.
Hello, contract 102 on Echo 1.
Contract 102, so tower, good evening. You're looking for a cargo stop?
A-firm, we're going to the cargo, contract 102.
Contract 102, perfect. Taxi Bravo, make a right turn on 1 or short, still for right.
Bravo, right turn 12, hold short 04 right, contract 102. Okay, Bravo's next left, then we turn on runway 12 and hold short of 04 right.
Tower, very good evening, Ryan 6 Foxtrot Lima on Alpha.
Ryan 6 Foxtrot Lima.
I'm impressed that they know that this is a cargo aircraft. Normally on VATSIM, when you're flying a 737 freighter, they will always send you to the passenger aprons. But very nice to see that these guys actually know what the contract call sign belongs to.
Get inspired number Yankee, contact apron 12165, goodbye. 165, yes, yeah, 5 Yankee.
Okay, so this is Bravo up here. So a quick glimpse at the taxi chart for you guys. We just turned left on Bravo, we'll enter the runway and hold short of here. Thereafter we'll have to cross the runway and then we'll go by Golf 2 and Golf to the apron, I suppose. Okay, confirm readback. Clear to enter runway 12, hold short 04 right. Clear on the left. Clear on the right. Okay, recall. Checked.
Contract 102, you can contact tower 11935, goodbye.
Contract 102, confirm the frequency again.
119.350.
119.350, contract 102, good day.
Runway 6 Foxtrot Lima, contact apron 121.
Hello, contract 102 on runway 12, holding short 04 right.
Contract 102, confirm you're going to cargo.
Contract 102, affirm.
Contract 102, roger, cross runway 04 right, continue via runway 12, Golf 2 and Golf, stand Golf 127.
Contract 102, stand Golf 127 via crossing 04 right, Golf 2 and Golf. Okay, that's as we've briefed. So, confirm readback, clear to cross. And we're clear on the right, no traffic coming there. Stunning graphics, by the way. And clear on the left.
Taxi to stand Foxtrot 4 via Alpha, Yankee, Victor, Sierra and Whiskey, Ryan 6 Foxtrot Lima.
So, shutdown engine number 2.
Hello, wind 040 at 9 knots, continue approach, number 2.
Continue, number 2, please.
Master caution, ELAC, source of 2 associated. Okay, so next left on Golf 2.
Your Sun 7 Kilo Alpha 0 for left, clear to land.
Quick peek at the charts.
0 for left to land, over 7 kilo left.
So we're going Golf 2, Golf, and then Golf 1. Oh, shit. Here we go. So, Golf 2, Golf, and the gate is gonna be 127, so just a slight bit to the right hand side there.
Thanks for flying, see you next time, bye bye.
Okay, that taxi routing is understood. And thank you very much for the excellent event from the contract 102 as well. Great job, guys.
You're very much welcome, and would love your feedback on the email that's listed in my controller info if you like.
You're definitely gonna get that one.
Oh, thanks.
Okay, the plane is going a little bit slow here. Normally at 40% it should accelerate a bit faster.
Alpha expedite vacating break blue scan 15 expect late lander clearance.
I'll just use a tiny bit more thrust here. Since we are basically just vacating a runway, there should be nothing behind us.
Blue scan 15 runway 0 for left, clear to land.
0 for left, clear to land, blue scan 15.
Red 61 Papa Castor Tower, hello, wind 040, 9 knots, continue approach number 2.
Okay, so Golf 127, let's see if we can get our...
You're Sun 70 Alpha, welcome to Copenhagen for now, continue taxi via Alpha.
Let's see if we can get the best comedian of the day to work again. Just be aware, normally you're supposed to keep the N1 below 40% on taxi, but for some reason the plane isn't accelerating as good. In real life it would. Probably a slight inaccuracy. So let's see, Golf 127, we do not need to follow me.
Continue number 2 to 1.
So gate should be just off to the right hand side here.
4 Lima Papa taxi via Romeo and Bravo.
And it is 126 and the next is 127 just over here.
Taxi via Romeo and Bravo loading on 0 for right and cross runway.
Red no 61 Papa, 0 for left, clear to land.
0 for left, clear to land, 61 Papa.
Scandinavian 85 Foxtrot, continue via Alpha.
So, the Mashallah is inside up there.
Romeo, stand Delta 4.
And stop.
Niner, with information data at gate Foxtrot 1.
Okay, so this is the moment of truth, if they indeed have a ground power unit or not. If they don't have a ground power unit with the APU INOP, then you are going to be standing here for a long time.
Yes.
Let's get rid of ATC. But of course we do have a good ground crew over here, so ground power request. The right engine has to be shut down for that, so otherwise they are not allowed to approach the aircraft. And here is our ground power unit. Perfect. So, 2 blue, 1 red, engine's dead. And we'll do the full shutdown procedure. So, engine 1 and 2 below 20%. Of course, this goes off as well. Okay, shutdown checklist. Fuel pumps off, electrical, ground power, fasten belts off, window heat off, probe heat auto, anti-ice off, electric hydraulic pumps off, voice recorder auto, air compacts off, engine bleeds on, APU bleed off, exterior lights steady, start switches off, auto brakes off, speed brakes, down detent, flaps, up and light, parking brake set, start levers cut off, weather radar off, transponder 2000 standby, CBRCB in, cockpit door unlocked, shutdown checklist complete. Alright everyone, welcome to Copenhagen. So now comes the moment of truth. Let's have a look at that landing rate and see how much I banked that airplane into the ground. Sim toolkit. Always takes a little while to actually get it up. please. So that's our route of flight. Direct to Hotel Delta Oscar, direct to Monarch, and then a little S-turn in over here. Looks like a pretty decent route of flight to me. Taking into account the borders of Germany and Poland over here, if you look at what a direct routing would have looked like, crossing the border and crossing it again and again and again, I would say this is a very efficient route that we actually flew over here. Okay, view full landing report. Let's get it. And here we are. Okay, so runway 04 left. We touch down just beyond the marker. Tiny bit on the left side. And 224 feet a minute. So, passengers would have said, yeah, positive landing. Freight doesn't complain. So in German we always say Fracht motzt nicht, Fracht kotzt nicht. That means freight doesn't complain and freight doesn't puke. In other words, I would say a pretty good landing. I mean, just after of the aiming point, slight bit left of the center line, and positive, but I mean, it's rainy, so you aren't supposed to do a smooth landing anyway. Positive, but a good landing overall. I am quite happy with that. Alright, made it. Then, 737NG123, do you know you can record your landings? Yes, I do indeed. I just don't really like it. Especially in the 737, because it does cause issues with the flight controls and stuff. But that's for another day. So, let's start the unloading over here. And we can slowly start securing our plane. That must be nice in cargo operations. You just secure it, you read the checklist, and you're done. Unlike in passenger operation where pilots have to stay on board while the airplane is being unloaded and stuff like that. In here, you do your stuff and you head right off. Lovely weather, by the way, isn't it? Saying that in the simulator, knowing that I don't have to walk through it. And Metal Eye, beyond the marker, how dare you? Yeah. Motoko, with a joke of the day. GSX is never broken, it works precisely what it means to. We take it, we take it. And Metal Eye just had a look at the new Seattle scenery, very nice in combinations with FSLTL and Jersey designed Seattle landmarks. Yeah, indeed, that is a scenery that I will have to have a look at as well. And Gerald, oh sorry, yeah, Gerald, that's how I pronounce it, I hope. If on the chart of the approach there is a VOR, do you always need to put that frequency in the nav frequency? Well, you need to put it in case you want to use it. So, if you don't want to use it, you don't need to put it in. So, for example, if the VOR is relevant for your missed approach, then you should tune it. And if it is not relevant for your flight, then you obviously don't have to tune it as well. So if we have a look into the Navigraph charts over here and have a look at our approach chart, this is what it looks like. And there is a VOR frequency on there, which is Castro 12.5. However, for the approach we don't need it, because we do have an ILS with a co-located DME available. And then if we have a look at the missed approach, climb straight ahead to 500, turn left onto 347 degrees, climb into 3000 feet and inform ATC. So the VOR is not used for the missed approach as well. It's simply straight ahead to an altitude and then a left turn onto a heading. So in this case we don't need to tune the VOR as well. Then, maximum pitch, angle for touchdown I answered already. Tail striker course at 11 degrees. So you do want to keep it below that. Then, to Katri. It's probably a little bit late, but let me quickly talk you over that engine failure. So, you've had an engine failure in cruise on the way to Hawaii, I suppose. So when an engine failure happens in cruise, there are a couple things that you want to do immediately. The first is, you go to the FMC cruise page and select the one engine out prompt to determine the best drift down speed and the highest flight level that you can still fly to. The next thing is to set maximum continuous thrust on the remaining engine and then request your descent from ATC. Normally, it does take a few minutes until the airplane has slowed down to the drift down speed with the remaining engine in max continuous thrust, so you do have a little bit of time available before you need to start the descent, but then again, don't let the airplane get too slow. When I'm reading in your comment there that you got the airplane down to 160 knots, then you definitely did something wrong. So with an engine failure in cruise, determine the maximum altitude that the airplane will be capable on single engine, and determine the drift down speed. Both can be done by going to the VNAV cruise page and selecting the engine out prompt. And then get your descent clearance from air traffic control down to a level that is just below that. So for example, let's say the drift down altitudes, or let's say the maximum altitude on a single engine would be, for example, flight level 245, then I would request a descent to something like flight level, you name it, 220 or flight level 200 or something like that. And from there, set maximum continuous thrust on the remaining engine, and then just put the aircraft into level change and let it slowly descend down to that altitude. And it is going to take a little while until your speed has come down to the drift down speed, and then you will slowly, at only a couple hundred feet a minute, descend, because the remaining engine is still going to be in maximum continuous thrust, and you want to leave it there, so don't just go idle, but keep the remaining engine in MCT. Once you are established in that drift down configuration, you have your aircraft flying and under control, and at that point you would determine the failure that has occurred and if you need to execute some memory items or not. So if it's just a normal engine flame out, in other words, if there is positive N2 rotation and positive N1 rotation, so you are showing a number greater than 0 on both N2 and N1, then it is just a normal engine failure and you would execute the engine failure or shutdown non-normal checklist. At the same time, if you see 0 on either N1 or N2, then you do have an engine severe damage or separation. In this case, we can say it is an engine severe damage, because if the engine actually separates, then the entire indications are not only going to 0, but they're actually going to blank out altogether. So that's how you can determine if you have a severe damage in the engine, or if the entire engine has actually separated from the aircraft. And if you go down like that on... so if you have any of those, either 0 and 1 or 0 and 2, or the indications just go entirely blank, or if you have an engine fire, then you would execute the engine fire, severe damage, or separation memory items. And those are auto throttle if engaged, disengage, thrust lever, engine number 1 or 2, confirm close, engine start lever, engine number 1 or 2, confirm cutoff, engine fire switch, engine number 1 or 2, confirm, override and pull. And if the engine fire switch is illuminated, then rotate to the stop and hold for 1 second. And if after 30 seconds it's still illuminated, then rotate to the other stop and hold for 1 second. And with that completed, you would then go into the respective non-normal checklist. So in case it is just a normal engine shutdown and you did not have to execute any of those memory items, then you would go ahead and continue with the engine engine restart checklist, because if an engine has just failed without actually separating, then never assume an engine cannot just be restarted again. It might just have been a temporary flameout in the engine that caused the shutdown, and the engine might be perfectly operable. So the engine failure or shutdown non-normal checklist is actually going to direct you into the engine in-flight start checklist. And if you do execute that checklist, you might be able to restart the engine. In case you are able to restart the engine, you might be able to continue normal operation depending on the amount of fuel that you have actually used up. So it might take a while there. Of course, if you do not have sufficient fuel available, then you will divert to a suitable airport. If you are able to restart the engine, it does not have to be the nearest suitable airport, but it just has to be a suitable airport. So let's say, for example, if you were flying from the Canary Islands to Germany, and if you do encounter that situation and you have insufficient fuel to continue to your destination in Germany, you might still be able to land the airplane somewhere in Belgium or somewhere in the Netherlands on the way. So that might help your airline getting closer, getting the passengers closer to their destination, so that the airline might be able to transport them on by bus, or that you just have to refuel the airplane and go on. Now, of course, in case you had an engine flame out, you wouldn't refuel the airplane and continue flying. Even if you have been able to restart the engine, you would still hand the aircraft over to maintenance, and then maintenance would have a look at it, which is probably going to take a night's time, or maybe a couple of days indeed, to determine why the engine failure actually happened. But the important point to take away from that is, if you do have just a normal engine failure and not an engine severe damage, separation or fire, then always assume that the engine might be able to start again, so never assume the engine cannot be started again. Just go ahead, restart that engine if you can, and the checklist is going to tell you that if you have no rise in EGT after 30 seconds, then you will abort the engine start again, and then it is going... So in case the engine start is not successful, then the engine in-flight non-normal checklist is going to direct you to the one engine inoperative landing checklist, and that is going to prepare you for landing on a single engine. The important thing is, when the failure first of all happens, don't force your airplane to stay at altitude, but indeed do start the drift down procedure. So, VNAV cruise page, select engine out, select an altitude that's below the drift down level, and then select the drift down speed, select level change, and set maximum continuous thrust on the remaining engine. And from there on you're going to start the checklist, and never let your speed go down. So never ever let your speed go down. By the way, talking about requesting descent from air traffic control. A few months ago, there was a business jet flying from Jerez in Spain to Cologne airport in Germany, and that business jet lost radio contact approximately 40 minutes in flight. And fighter jets have been dispatched and went up to the aircraft, and they discovered that everybody was sitting in their seat but was unconscious. In other words, the airplane had a decompression, and for whatever reason they did not start an emergency descent and they did not put the masks up. And a couple of days ago, the preliminary report has been... the preliminary report on that has been issued, and they figured out that this pilot of that Cessna Citation business jet did not put the oxygen mask on when they had the decompression, and they did not start an emergency descent. Instead, they request descent rapido from air traffic control. Air traffic control did not understand. The pilot did not start the descent. The pilot became unconscious after half a minute because he did not put the oxygen mask on and did not start an emergency descent. And that's how that aircraft ended up without a pilot, or rather with everybody unconscious, and the autopilot just kept flying it over the destination, over the sea, and eventually the aircraft ran out of fuel somewhere in front of Latvia and crashed into the ocean. So that story just came to my mind when we thought about requesting descent from and keeping your airspeed before you actually start the descent. So that is a really unfortunate story, but yeah, that's what happened there. And there is a question from 737NG123. Would you start the APU or just start off N1? Talking about the engine inoperative case here, and you will see that the engine failure or shutdown checklist or the engine severe damage or separation checklist is going to direct you to start the APU in step 7 or step 8 or something like that. So pretty much right after the memory items are complete and after the engine is secured, the next step is indeed to start the APU. In case you have an engine failure in a twin-engine jet, you want to start the APU anyway, because you will be down to a single AC power source, and you always want to get that APU generator online, so that you have a second generator available. Normally, when you have just an engine failure, not a fire, but just an engine failure, you don't have to declare a mayday actually, but that since modern airplanes, especially the 737 and other modern twin jets, are perfectly capable of flying on a single engine, that's why such a failure is not a mayday, but just a pan call. Of course, the pilot can always just declare a mayday. There are some countries in which a pan call is not understood properly, and in that case, of course, the pilot can always declare a mayday. So, if you, however, don't start the APU, or if the APU is inoperative, like it is on the flight that we just did, then you are down to a single source of AC electrical power. And if that happens, then that is a definite mayday. So if you don't have the APU available and you have an engine failure, then regardless of the actual effects of the engine failure, you have to declare a mayday anyway, because only a single source of AC power remains. And Metal Eye, all crashes are sad. Most terrifying, which I still cannot understand, is the Germanwings 9525. Just rest in peace to all innocents. Yeah, absolutely. That is a very tragic case, and, well, there really is not a lot to say there, except for rest in peace. Alright, so this shall conclude the little excursion into engine failures. Actually, the engine failure in flight does sound like a pretty interesting case, so I might go ahead and simulate that in a future failure video for my channel. So, thank you very much everyone, I hope that you have enjoyed today's live stream, and I'm very much looking forward to see you all again on the next one. Who knows, maybe tomorrow. For sure there will be some new videos coming tomorrow, as this has been a very inspiring stream, and I came across a lot of new video ideas during this one, which I wrote down parallel to the live stream. So I'm very much looking forward to creating those videos for you guys, and I'm hoping to see you again in the next couple of days. Until then, thank you very much, have a nice evening, have a nice